In relation to Don Bagman?
Okay.
I haven't seen him in years.
All right, meeting is recording, called meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Do roll call attendance, so thank you, Carl, for updating the agenda to be more in line with, I think some of the other committees are going through their details. So
Conservation Commission.
appreciate it.
Indeed.
So Mike Rager.
Carl Hummel.
Mike Mandel,
Ron Zavuto.
Jesse Krill.
All right, and because Jesse, you're online, we've got to do roll call voting, so make sure you call out your name and your votes. Next item, good and welfare for the public. Are there any members of the public who would like to make any statements or questions? Hearing none, we'll move on. All right, so the goal for today is have the next item, discussion with department heads regarding special town meeting. So we will start first with Chief Bangma in the fire department. So Chief, if you want to take it away, thank you for joining us.
No problem. So we're looking to add a boat and a UTV to our operational complement at the fire department. We did a in-house assessment of some areas of vulnerability within our operations, and we found that these two areas kind of are pretty big for us. Well, the boat, we have a fairly active recreational pond, and right now we only have a inflatable pontoon boat, if you will. It's just big. This is we have a really long inflatable boat with paddles.
Yep.
If we need to get somewhere in the middle of the lake, it's going to be a lot of paddling and very inefficient. We'd be looking to get a 12-foot inflatable with a 25 horsepower motor on it. So that will definitely increase our speed, getting places where it's needed. The other thing is the UTV, side-by-side, kind of like a John Deere Gator, like I explained last time. This would be dual purpose. We have so much conservation land within the town, limited access, small trails. The one that we're looking to get is a 2-door variant of that. It has a rescue module in the back, so if there's an injured party in the woods, we can utilize that to get in, bring them out. And the committee that we put together, they kind of thought outside the box a little bit. The back part is a trailer that has 125 gallons of water and its own pump, so you could drive that into the woods, into a remote area, find a remote pond, put it in there and have endless supply of water with that small pump and operate off of that, and still have the versatility with the UTV to bring people and equipment in and out.
How many gallons of water?
It carries 125.
125, okay, that's different from what Jeremy represented last time.
And that 125 gallons of water, what is the general size fire you'd be able to address with that? I can see going through 125 gallons.
Yeah, fairly quickly, depending on how big the fire is. It will knock down a decent amount.
Yep.
A lot of the smaller brush trucks that area towns have 250 gallons of water in it, and full-size pickups. So this would be able to get in closer, less hose stretching, and be able to, like I said, get to a remote water source, which we have plenty of water in town, just we can't get to most of it. So,
Yeah.
So if we could, the town forest, there's a lot of water in there, we could drive this up, drop it right there, put a suction hose into the water, and as long as there's water in the pond, we'd have water.
Yeah. Okay. And when you're saying the back of the truck, is it the same size, is it the same wheelbase where like you instead of having 4 doors, you've got that back half removed, so you have a larger area for somebody to lay if they have
It's
to?
a shorter wheelbase, so we went with the shorter wheelbase because of such the tight turns that we have on all the trail systems in town. So it's very maneuverable, but we can still, on the back, there's a spot to carry a stowage basket, which is basically a stretcher that we can put people in and have a seat next to it so they can get care while they're being removed.
Yeah. Okay. And I think some of the other questions that we raised last meeting was just about the approach of, new equipment, used equipment, and total costs.
So total cost for the UTV is around $65,000 for both units. I haven't really seen any used market for them. Most of the departments that have them keep them for quite some time.
Yeah.
So it's the combined package, the trailer and the UTV is around 65. It's gone up since I initially got the first quote. It's been close to a year, so it's expected.
Yep.
The boat, yes.
Oh, you can finish that. When you're done, I got a question.
Okay. The boat, all in with equipment, new life jackets and ropes to go in it, would be under 25,000, just shade under 25, I believe.
Does that include the trailer?
Yes.
Trailer, life
Trailer,
jacket,
boat, and motor. Yeah.
life jacket.
Yeah,
Motor was, what size again, 25?
25 horse, yeah. Right, the biggest you would want to put on a boat that size, but
Absolutely, yeah.
if you go any bigger, you might be driving with a crowd up there.
What's the added cost to our liability insurance?
I do not know that. Jeremy, would you have an answer to that one?
It's tough to say right off the top because I don't get an itemized premium list. To add 2 small vehicles, it should be pretty minimal.
Well,
No outside.
Not really a vehicle and a car, you're gonna go through the woods with that. I'm sure there's certain liabilities that are gonna pop up, especially if you're going in to save someone and you're coming out in a hurry. You're gonna be on cart roads,
Yeah.
bumping around. I'm sure it's not just a regular insurance you would put on. Well,
Yes,
I'd
we
like
would
to
insure.
find out about that.
We would insure it not as a road vehicle, like the same as we would the chief's vehicle or something else. We'd insure it as a piece of specialty equipment. So that's all rolled into it.
But I think the liability insurance that Mike is talking about is more of you are rescuing somebody in the middle of the woods and now you're taking an off-road vehicle, getting them out. There has to be some insurance of, let's just say a strap breaks or, you're bumping them around. Granted, they needed saving anyway, but now
How do ambulances do it?
I don't know, but I'm sure.
I don't know the answer to that one either, if there's any special.
I feel like there would be an extra rider for being able to,
Yeah, again, I would like to see what it is. Like to find out. You know.
Not completely related, but a little bit. We would do driver training.
Absolutely, I would imagine.
There was a line of duty death in Connecticut last year, someone operating a UTV inappropriately, so
Right.
definitely make sure we get people trained.
Precisely my point.
Yep.
So I'd like to just see what,
Yeah.
if and any, all costs associated with it. I think it's a great idea. We got a lot of woods around here. We're coming into a season now where there's gonna be a lot of people in the woods with
Yep.
guns,
Yep.
et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
The UTV and trailer, is that road capable or does it go on something else that transports it to the trailhead?
It can be road capable.
So it gets a license plate?
It can, yes. I believe you can either get it, depending on the speed rating for it, a low-speed vehicle or a regular one if it's over.
Yeah.
My previous department, we had it registered, inspected every year like a regular automobile, so don't know how that was done, but it was done. Yeah.
And the inflatable boat and trailer, what unit would be pulling it from the fire station to the,
My vehicle could tow it.
Okay.
We have a brush truck that could tow it. We also have a pickup truck that would be able to tow it.
okay.
And there was talk about adding a hitch onto our squad, which is our specialized engine that has all the water rescue equipment. And we're thinking about parking it right behind it and towing it behind that. So it's all in one package.
Does the boat stay inflated?
Yes.
So you pump it up and it stays that way?
Yep.
So how long would it take from getting a 911 call until you were able to get it to the lake and in the water? Is that a question of like 10 minutes or so?
It could probably be within 10 minutes.
So because you leave it inflated?
Yep.
You're on a trailer, correct?
So you just hook up the trailer and go?
So again, going back to insurances, I'd like to see what the insurance costs, because again, you're on a boat, on the water. I'm sure some of your men have to be certified boating.
We do, it would be an asset for the regional dive team as well. We would have a member of the dive team on our department.
So in the past 5-10 years, how many calls have there been on the lake? Have you had to go mutual aid and get regional people in there?
We have, yeah, there's
How
been some
many?
incidents. I would say less than 5. There was an accident at Alicante, they double fatal. We had to activate the regional dive team
Okay.
and they brought in their boats, which was a longer period of time to get them there, but we did have a boat fire a couple months ago. We had our firefighters operating on the dock, so having a boat nearby would have been handy to give safety to our firefighters as well. There's a battery fire on a boat on a dock.
And same question, how many calls for things out in the brush on trails that the ATV, the UTV would have come in handy?
Don't have a number for that, but like last year alone, we were going out quite often for multiple brush fires. There was one probably 3 or 4 years ago, very deep in the woods. We had to lay over 1,000 feet of a hose into the woods to get to the seat of the fire. And we could have accessed it a lot easier with that.
So a question for Jeremy, do other town departments have trail-capable UTVs? Or would this be the first one in town?
The police have a side-by-side, but not trail intended.
Okay. And my other question is, especially for the boat, would these be available for other town departments?
If they requested mutual aid, we would provide it.
Okay, what is mutual aid a jargon term for?
Within our town or?
Right,
So if another town requested it, we would respond.
no, I'm saying if like, the Conservation Commission wanted to use the UTV to help haul stuff for trail rebuilding or to do code enforcement on the lake. Or if land use wanted to go and do a survey and they wanted to use the UTV to go look at some conservation trails and see whether they were suitable for motorized or repair and stuff like that.
I think it might be better to keep it within the department for emergency response. Right now, if we need to, we could provide assistance to other departments, but not giving them out to other departments to operate. Would be
What's the difference?
We would be, all of us would be trained to utilize the vehicle. And we're members of the fire department, insured on it that way, so it's.
Again, those are good questions, Carl, but I think it would be unlikely because, again, if you're out doing something for land use, something like that,
Yeah.
number one, you're gonna have to send a guy. Number two, all of a sudden, you're short-handed if an emergency does happen. Murphy's Law.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I think it's a great idea while we have this money, that we build up our resources for fire and safety and police.
Capital has been very good to us over the past couple of years. We're in a very good spot. I can't really name too many other things that we would need at this point that haven't been provided.
I do have a question about the boat. Is that, where would that be kept? Inside or outside?
It would be kept inside.
Okay.
Our station, between our doors, it's very high. It's abnormal for a normal fire station. Usually there are lots. We can park vehicles in between our vehicles if we want to. Doesn't make a ton of sense, but we would be able to position that in the station.
And
Good.
I'm just curious, what's the temperature in there? The only reason why I ask is I have a boat. Winterized, I'm always thinking of that. So.
We have fire trucks with water in them, so it is always at least 55 degrees in there.
I mean, technically, that's within your living environment, isn't it? Yeah, so.
Perfect.
Jeremy, your comment on the police station has a side-by-side. Why is that not trail capable? What kind of side-by-side is it?
Don't know, it predates me. It showed up on a on a specialized equipment inventory when we were doing a project on fuel efficiency, and then I saw it at Public Safety Day. I don't know its origin or its total use. But it was not bought, as I understand it, for trail capabilities.
That may not have been the original intended purchase, but have we considered, is there a way to modify that to fit the intended purposes of all of public safety?
It is a bigger vehicle. Theirs, it's the four-door longer, and it doesn't have the capabilities for the rescue on the back. But
Okay. I can appreciate the wheelbase necessity. So I appreciate the wheelbase necessity, and if the suspension is not set up for it, it's a completely different vehicle, so I get it, but. All right, are there any other questions, folks have for the chief, for the article, the equipment?
I mean, one quick question. Approximate life expectancy of both, let's say.
the boat, I would give it at least 20, 25 years. I don't think it would be.
Not gonna get a lot before.
Yeah.
What about,
Hopefully I'll be retired by the time that's here.
what about the UTV?
UTV is probably around the same, probably 15 to 20 years easily, depending on the usage.
And have we worked annual maintenance costs into all the other maintenance pieces of the budget on a current basis?
I don't foresee it being a big maintenance issue.
Yeah.
I think we could absorb it into some of our vehicle maintenance right now.
How much training budget?
The training, we don't have a dedicated training budget. It just comes out of our salaries.
Okay. Any other questions? Great.
So before, if I can interject, Mike, before the chief leaves, there are two other fire articles on here. Turnout gear, continuing the mode of getting a second set for folks. It's a $40,000 ask for increased turnout gear. And then there is appropriating money to pay for fire department leases out of new growth onto the general fund. Did the committee want to talk to the chief about either of those first?
Yeah, I have questions about turnout gear.
Sure.
Could you define it?
It's the structural gear that we use. It's the pants, coat, hood,
The
helmet.
big rubber looking thing.
No, they're made of fabric. It's
Okay.
it's fire protective. It's 3 layers.
When you think of firefighter
Yeah,
and all the stuff they're wearing,
yeah.
that's the turnout.
That yeah.
And why is it recommended that there be 2 sets for each firefighter?
If we respond to an incident, a structure fire, the gear gets contaminated. We need to decon it, and it takes time to wash everyone's gear. So you need to have a second set for them to be operationally ready.
Okay. I looked online and I found a couple of firefighter blogs that say, yes, we think it's an industry best practice. Is there any other, is there a recommendation from a firefighters standards organization that says everybody should get 2?
It's been a big push within the state. The Department of Fire Service has been trying to push grants out over the past 5 years to try to get second sets of gear for all firefighters.
So there's a state agency that's recommended to individual fire departments?
The Department of Fire Services oversees all fire operations within the state.
Okay.
Part of the material cleaning is to clean off cancer-causing issues, right, carcinogens, right? I've also spoken with multiple firefighters from multiple different departments, and they all work at larger areas that have multiple pieces of turnout gear, and so.
Okay, I think it'd be very helpful if we had a web page or a document from the state that we could refer to at town meeting if someone asks about why they need 2. We can say, because the state's recommending it as a best practice, and therefore we're.
That's a great recommendation. I will say that this did not pop up the last time we talked about it.
I know, but
yeah.
And it's my anticipation, like last time we did this, to put this item on the consent agenda as well.
So this is issued to each member of the fire department. When a member leaves, it's a different job, get retired, what happens to that gear?
Yeah, it gets taken out of in service, put on a shelf in the back, and if the next person that comes in fits in that gear,
Okay.
it's all kind of custom tailored, but there's some wiggle room, we can put people in it. The 2 newest career hires that we have both have full gear, if you will, from previous members. So we try to put people in gear that we can.
Okay,
How frequently do they need to be replaced, each individual set?
10 years doesn't matter how much you use it, after 10 years, they need to be thrown out.
Okay, so
that's-
do we have,
And that's accounted for in the general fund. We've been funding that cyclical replacement in the general fund, and then this expansion of inventory we've been doing through one-time free cash.
once it's been expanded, there needs to be a bump in the operating to reflect.
Naturally,
It's getting reflected, okay.
naturally, yeah.
Additional ones replaced.
Yeah, we're trying to get ahead of it and start the cyclical replacement, so we're.
That way you're not getting a whole new department's worth of additional gear, bang, 10 years, bang, 10 years, bang, 10 years.
how many members on the fire department now?
There's 24 members.
24, full-time,
There's 8 full.
8 full-time. So each member gets one, whether they're full-time or.
Correct. Every firefighter that's on the department issues at least one set.
How many sets do you currently have on the shelf?
On the shelf, I would say 2, 3, and they're kind of big and small sizes. So luckily, one of our last hires was on the small side, so she would fit into one of our former female firefighters' gear perfectly. So it was beneficial for that.
Is that a professional service that cleans?
No, we have a washer and extractor within our station, but the dryer that we have it's basically up to a day before one set of gear.
Sure.
So if there's 12 of us that go into a fire, we all need to wash our gear, it's
Let me ask you this, pertaining to that. What, is there bigger or better or faster cleaning gears?
there is, yes.
Have you been thinking about upgrading it?
I don't know the actual age of these. I need to dig deeper into the files to try to figure out when they were purchased.
You talk about the washers?
The washer, yeah. The washer is one set at a time. The dryer is twice the size of the washer, so, but it still takes a long time to dry.
Right, well, that's what I'm
There's
saying.
so much materials in it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There's different types, there's cabinet ones where you can hang up like 6 sets, it just cycles warm air through warm, dry air. Ours is just a giant tumbler.
And you clean them every time you go out to a fire.
Every time they're contaminated, yeah. Not every call, but every time they're contaminated.
Right, and you go out in a call and want to fight a fire.
Yeah.
And get contaminated, but usually when you're
Yep.
in a firefight,
Mm-hmm.
they gotta go first.
Okay. I don't have any other questions on the other articles unless anybody else does from the committee.
No further questions on Article 5.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Take care.
Good night. All right. Next up, Mr. Dudley, Highway Department.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I have a few articles. I will start with our request for a backhoe. Our current backhoe is 22 years old. It is a good machine, but it is starting to show its age, and we've had to do some major repairs over the past year for this piece of equipment. This is the primary piece of equipment that we use for all of our road projects, whether it's repairing a pipe, doing a catch basin, clearing trees from the road. This is that frontline piece of equipment that we use for it. I have
What is it? What make and model? What is
the
it?
one that we have now
Yeah,
is a John Deere 310 SG. I have 2 quotes for replacements. We are looking at roughly $150,000 with a $25,000 trade-in value on the current machine that we have. And that would be to replace it with the same category, we'll say. So Caterpillar is not going to be the same numbers as John Deere, but the compatible. I've had the two quotes from Caterpillar and John Deere.
I'm sorry, it's 150,000. What's it, 25,000?
Yep, so John Deere has quoted us, it's right around 150,000, and Caterpillars I have 148.9. John Deere has given us a $25,000 trade-in on the current backhoe.
I think
Thank
the
you. Ron's
question is
question
it
is
one
this-
seventy-five minus 25, or is it one
Yeah, that's
fifty
what I'm
minus
asking.
25?
No, so it's 150 minus the 25. So we're at
Okay,
we're at 125, give or
125.
take. Yep,
Have you gotten a trade-in quote from Cat?
I have not,
What's the
but
Cat model?
I would venture to guess they will be roughly the same.
How old is the current one that we're trading in? I'm just curious. I know you had mentioned it, but.
22 years old.
Okay, right. Okay, good.
Do you have the Cat model number that you have a quote for?
Yep, there's a Cat 420 backhoe.
Okay, thank you.
So both of them would be sufficient to meet our needs, obviously, correct?
Correct. The only addition that I would be adding to this is the thumb on the backhoe portion of it, the boom arm. And that would we would be able to utilize that to move trees and boulders and stuff around a lot easier, having that thumb to grab onto them. But the price that I have told you guys reflects the thumb on both of the quotes.
Slight upgrade. What's the expected lifespan?
We're at 22 years right now, and it's starting to show his age. I would say 20. You get 20 years out of it.
What were the repairs that you've done on the?
So there's been a wiring harness that has been giving us trouble for 3 years, and technicians have been out 3 times. I believe the last time we actually had to replace the wiring harness and not just some of the plugs, and that was a pretty significant cost to us.
Anything else? Transmission, bushings, pins?
I mean, routine wear and tear on the machine, things have been replaced. It's a lot slower than it used to be. You can tell. Sorry, I didn't catch
You
that.
have 22 years of experience?
He's got 2 thumbs.
I guess 50.
Okay.
Oh, I was on the finance committee when we bought that background.
Now you are showing your age.
Wow.
I'm just curious, does it have an hour meter, or just curious how many, do you know how many hours is on it, or is this?
I don't have the hours right now. I can get them for you, but it's I want to say last time I looked, it was over 4,000 hours. But I can get the hours for you and send that your way.
Not really.
Well, 200 a year, roughly?
Well, that equipment's
Yeah,
is made to run 40 hours a week if not.
that's true too, but I was thinking of the town, yeah. Not construction, hopefully they're not doing construction.
Same thing.
Yeah, well,
So you decided, it sounds like you decided to get this particular price point because it would be replacing the existing equipment. If you were given an additional 20, 50,000 and able to go up to the next level, would that be worth it in terms of price performance? Would it be more useful for?
Yeah, but the problem we're going to run into is storage. The bigger we go with a machine, I mean, we're pushing it right now, getting it into the building. Where we get a much bigger machine, say we go $25,000 or $50,000 more for a machine. We're talking a much taller, higher machine that won't fit in the building.
Okay,
And what we use ours for now, its capabilities are great for what we use it for now. I mean, is it always better to have more? Yes, but we can do what we need to do with what we have.
I appreciate right sizing the equipment.
Well, it's right sizing the storage barn, and maybe you'll come back in another couple of years looking for a bigger facility, bigger barn.
We can reference this conversation and say you have the size of machine that is necessary.
And you could trade it in for a bigger one that was more capable and it will work faster.
I mean, Mike made a good point though, when you said these are, are made for 40 hours a week, let's say.
Right.
But
It doesn't matter who owns it.
right, but I'm guessing that this particular one isn't one that you'd see a construction company that's doing 40 hours a week buy. This, you know what I mean? In other words, this is not probably, this is really the top of the line.
I could be mistaken with the hours, and like I said, I will get the hours, exact hours off of that machine and send it to you guys in an email.
I was just more curious, I mean, I think that 4,000 hours is, it's not a lot, but on a town that's roughly, if you do the math, it's about 4 hours a week, let's say. That means for every week you don't use it, you do it 8, and that isn't a lot. However, on a town this size, I mean, I would guess it would be less than that. That's just me, but.
Is this the machine that cleans catch basins, sewer catch basins and things?
No, so all of our sewer catch basins are contracted out every year to clean out the material. This machine is the one that helps to rebuild them then, though.
Okay,
So when we have to rip a catch basin out, this is the machine that does it. Using the backhoe, we take the blocks, everything that needs to come out, we will rip it out, the asphalt, and we get rid of it, and then we utilize it to put stuff back in.
Jesse, your opinion on this purchase as a member of the capital planning committee?
I don't think the capital planning committee voted on this.
Yeah, yes, I can go back and check the minutes, but this was brought to the last capital meeting as the #1 priority for the highway department in terms of equipment replacement. We didn't go much further down than that on people's priority list, not knowing where free cash was at the time. So this is pretty conservative in terms of the overall ask as a percentage of free cash, but this was the #1 highway department priority.
Yeah, but we don't vote on it. Sorry, that's what I was being specific about. We don't actually vote on whether anything moves forward or doesn't move forward. We just assign priorities to them. And it was higher on
Yeah.
the priority list.
No, understood. I was just looking for, as we have this new committee, as another level of input to this committee, and you are on the capital planning committee, I was looking for your input from operating on the capital planning committee for this decision.
It was giving a high priority. That's all I can say.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Any other questions for John on this one? Okay, John, you want to move on to the next article?
Yep, so our second priority would be an additional 1-ton dump truck that would be utilized by the new grounds department. It would be, you'd be able to differentiate between highway and grounds. It'd be different coloring. Biggest thing that I have talked about recently is that it's becoming increasingly harder for us to find contractors, plow contractors that are willing to put their vehicles on the towns or plow for the town. It is much easier for me to find somebody to sit in a seat and drive one of our trucks as a part-time employee. So with that being said, I went ahead and got quotes for a 2023 Ford F350 Super Duty with a 9-foot dump body. We're looking at 66,000 for that truck, not with a plow. My past experience has showed us, or I've seen that going through a dealer to get a plow tends to be a lot more money for the plow than it is if I were to go to a local company. So I didn't get the plow quoted with this. I will handle that on my own, but we're probably talking another $8,000 to $9,000 there. This would have a 9-foot dump body on it, 9-foot plow, and it would just be utilized as a dump truck. This would not be something that would be salting during ice operations.
Dump truck and plow,
Yep.
not salt. And
Correct.
it's used with miles on it?
No, this is a brand new.
New
Brand new.
23.
Yeah,
New
new.
23.
This is the new 2023. It's actually on the ground right now, and it's like I said, an F350 XL 4-wheel drive regular cab dump truck, gas dump truck.
Thank you
Any
for
idea why it's
specifying
been sitting
gas.
around so long?
What's that?
Any idea why it's been sitting around so long? Is that typical?
So it's through MHQ, which is a municipal headquarters for McGovern. So they have a wide stock of vehicles that are sitting there, and they're specific to municipalities. You as Michael Krager or Carl Hummel can't go to MHQ and say, I want to buy this for a personal vehicle. These are specifically bought on a state contract for municipalities.
Got it.
Okay.
So the inventory can sit around a lot longer than normal?
Yeah, so he has a few dump trucks sitting around in inventory right now.
For comparison's sake, I think this is going to lead into the question, how does that compare to going to a local dealer and purchasing one? It begs the question.
If I were to go to say right down the street here, price is going to be a lot more, and there are only certain companies that are on state contract. Municipal MHQ, McGovern MHQ happens to be one of the largest ones in the area. If I were to go down to Imperial, then I would have to get 3 quotes, or sorry, go out to competitive bid for this, because it would be over 50,000, and the price would be way more.
Okay. No, it begged the question, so I had to ask.
That being said, we buy a Ford, we can bring it to Imperial, and they will service it.
I'll ask the same question as before. What if you got another 20, 30, 25,000? Is there something else on their lot that would be more useful price performance?
I didn't ask him about larger trucks. If there's 25,000 more, I can go back to him and say, okay, what can I get for 25,000 more than what you quoted me?
Well, what's the dump truck going to be hauling around for the grounds department?
So for the grounds department, you're probably looking at some loom, mulch, brush, grass clippings. It's landscaping and vegetation, I would say.
That's why you don't want to put salt in it, because it would wreck the loom.
Well, it's not even that. We have our trucks that we use for salt. I would like to keep the same 6 using the salt and not add that to any of the other trucks, because the salt does a number on these trucks.
Right. Makes sense.
Okay. All right, any other questions, comments from the committee on this article? John, you've got another one, right?
I do.
Roads.
Roads 250.
Article 13 reclassification, Article 30 road funding.
So do you want me to talk about the reclassification, John?
Yeah, if you would like.
Yeah, so the reclassification, when this was first started, there was this fund was first started, there was a $75,000 appropriation to fund the lease of a trackless and mini dump truck, and then also subsequently approved the town to enter into an 8-year lease. The town was approved for both of those things and entered into the lease. We are currently paying the lease at $50-something thousand on the trackless. Thank you. On the trackless out of the general fund. It's budgeted in our general fund, and it has been since the lease has started. My anticipation is what happened here is that we thought a lease payment would happen before the budgetary season or the new fiscal year started, and wanted to have available funds in advance of July 1. That didn't happen. We never paid any money out of this and been paying the lease out of the general fund. So the $75,000 has been sat here doing nothing. It was originally funded out of stabilization. So this closes the fund out and puts it back into stabilization. It does not reclassify the fund. It moves it into stabilization and then request a new $75,000 from free cash to be appropriated for the purchase.
So it's paperwork.
In a sense, yeah.
Any other questions from the committee?
Not on 13. What about Article 30 road funding?
So road funding, I don't know if I know Carl, you did. I don't know if any of you other guys that caught the presentation I did for the select board a few weeks ago, and just trying to get a grasp on what roads need to be fixed. We'll say there's different methods to that, but it's pretty simple. When I did a 3-year timeline for that, and the more funding we have, the more I can push these roads up to be fixed and put more stuff into that 3-year timeline.
Before this goes any further, Carl, I just want to say I'm not sure what you're working off of. The additional road repairs, Article 33, and then the closing of the fund was Article 15, and the opening of a new fund for a truck was Article 16.
Okay, I haven't gone back and renumbered from my notes from the mail you sent out a couple of days ago. So that's I'll have to go back and redo my article numbers then.
All right, great. Just didn't want folks to get confused if they're listening to this and follow along.
I was just scrolling because I'm like, I don't think those numbers align.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, John, I did not get a chance to see that presentation.
So long and short of it, I've been trying to work on a schedule for roads that need to be repaired in town based not solely on collective or cost benefit value to the town, but the largest majority of how I'm basing these roads being fixed would be the cost benefit to the town. There are.
That was based on an independent report, right?
Yep. So a 2023 pavement management study was done, and I've actually sat down with Jeremy. We've looked at this list and we've checked some of these off, but there are still some roads. A lot of these roads need to be taken care of, and the more money we can throw at it, the more we can get done. In the past, we've relied up until 2 years ago, we've relied solely on Chapter 90 money, and the past 2 years we've thrown additional money at it, and it has allowed us to get more done in town. And I would hope that we can continue to do that.
Could you explain the difference between this 20,000 would go, 200,000 would go and get spent on hiring contractors to do major work versus if you had a mill head for your let's see,
Trackless.
for your multi-purpose trackless. What would you be able to do with the multi-purpose trackless?
The multi-purpose trackless would be, we would be able to use that. We get a milling head for that. We would be able to utilize it to fix rough areas of roads. Say you drive down a road and there's a patch that we have to keep fixing with potholes, and we could then mill that area out without repairing the whole road and pave it ourselves. And then on the other side of that is when a whole road needs to be done, and it's kind of I don't want to say it's a waste of our time, but it's throwing money at this when the whole road needs to be fixed. We would hire contractors to come in and do a complete rehab on these roads, and there are many different methods to that.
At our last meeting, Jeremy said that, when I heard your presentation to the select board, you said the mill head, I think, was 25,000, 10,000 for tariffs, and then there'd be an additional cost for the watering equipment to keep the dust down well.
Yeah, that's minimal. I actually met with our salesman last week, and he is in the process of working on getting us one of these milling heads down here for, even if it's a couple hours, just to see if our machine is going to be able to do this, see how it works, see if it's a good fit for us. And then that quote is from a while ago, so I would probably have him re-quote it with the water system on that. But I will say that that can be purchased through Chapter 90 funds.
Is your line of questioning towards should we be using some of that 200,000 to purchase the mill head?
No,
So-
I just,
so-
no, he mentioned it during the select board presentation, it wasn't in this, and I wanted to make sure that that would not be, he answered, the $200,000 is for roads that he identified, the millhead would be separate, that he would come up with the money, he and Jeremy would come up with the money from someplace else.
Okay.
And not go to town meeting for.
Yeah, okay.
Just a couple of points on that. Just because it's Chapter 90 eligible, we may say we want to, use all our Chapter 90 for road rehabilitation and supplement, $30,000 with free cash. So it might still come to town meeting at some point. Not right now. This ask is going to be for $250,000, just the same as it was the two previous times. And just to slot that into context, our Chapter 90 this year is $588,000. Of that, 128 is part of a supplemental $80 million bond bill. Normally, it's just a $300 million program, but that additional $80 million got us 128. So really our baseline would have been 460 in Chapter 90, and that's what we anticipate in fiscal 27 as well. Just because this was a not promised additional supplemental.
And the question I asked before is about what if you got more money? You answered that in the presentation where you said with 250,000 you would do these roads would be on your 3-year plan. If you got more money, you identified some additional roads.
Yep. So I only went out 3 years because it's tough to look at the condition of roads past 3 years. You can look at roads right now and say this one needs to be redone, but weather plays a key factor in this. A lot of things play a key factor in this, and we could look at a road now that is in good shape, and in 3 to 5 years it is in horrible shape. So it's tough to go out past those 3 years, but the more funding that we get in, the more I can pull into this 3-year schedule to get things done now, or not now, but within the next 3 years.
Is there a limit in terms of how many contractors you can get to work on roads in any particular repair season?
No.
So for everyone's edification, we do a bid at the start of the fiscal year for things like hot mix laid in place for paving, for milling, for reclamation, for all these things associated. So we go out sometimes in joint with other municipalities, sometimes on our own, and we get a contractor who gives us a unit price for the year. And we anticipate, or at least communicate, what our expectations are on volume ahead of time. And that helps them price it as well. So it's not each individual job. We're putting together a bid package and going out and doing start to finish a whole 30B process, or whole 3039M process. We do this upfront, and we have one contractor for the year. And then depending on the terms of the bid, we can, extend it a year or two with previously agreed upon escalators, or whether it's a one-way extension or a two-way extension. So we're not rebidding this project every time. We have one contractor we work with for the whole year.
Great. All right.
That being said, Carl, you asked about different contractors. So you might have I brought this up the other night, the big scary fire machine that was burning the roads last year. That is a different contractor than, say, a milling contractor or a reclamation contractor. That contractor specifically does that and that alone. So yes, there would be different contractors that I could have in town at the same time working on different roads.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the committee?
Just that this was talked about probably more than most things in the capital planning committee, and it was one of the highest priorities in, I believe, most of the people's on the committee's mind.
Great. Perfect. All right, thanks, John. I think that's all of your articles, right?
I believe so.
Great.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Appreciate it.
How you doing?
Thanks, John.
Mr. Byer, you up next.
Okay. Here, let me walk upstairs.
Say, I can hear you down there.
Stereo.
Yeah. But there's a delay.
They did my road last year, North Bridge, they repaved it. And I was gonna tell John that it's gonna last forever now because no one goes down it because of the bridge being up.
Yeah, there's like a weird delay downstairs too. Everything through the floor.
Yeah. Okay.
Oops, sorry, hang on, I get stuff in here. It should be. So our request is for, I don't know the article number off the top of my head. We're looking for funding towards some design work for the septic / bathrooms related to Town Beach. And I don't know the final number. I think we're looking for around $8,000. Jeremy, what did we say the number was?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit earlier today. We had a number greater than $8,000 as a quote from about a year and a half ago. So the request is for $10,000. And we'll say what would happen is we would create a fund and we would do the preliminary kind of perk testing work to see, does this plan work? And if it does, spend the money on design, and then whatever would be left over in that design, roll it into the overall construction budget. And if this is something that doesn't work there and we need a new way and there ends up being money left over in this fund and there's no construction that results from it, we'll just close it back out to the general fund. So I've always liked to ask for a contingency in these funds rather than try to come back and get a second bite at the apple. Just say we'll give back whatever we don't use for this project.
Yeah, so I got a revised proposal from them this today. It's closer to 7,500, but I asked them to break out the perk testing portion. So just to kind of step back at what we're looking to do here. So the Town Beach currently is running on tight tanks, 2 of them, which is a long story. But we're spending every time we have to have those tanks pumped, it's like $600. What I'd ideally like to do is have a new leaching field septic system at the park across the street where we have tons of land, and now we're not next to the lake where we have an environmental issue with having a septic field. Pump the waste across the street to this new system. And then if everything works out, it would also be a septic system for the Lowell Field concession stand, which currently has no sinks. It's just a building, there's a hose, but they could put in a sink and have a drain and tie into that as well. And then hopefully the goal would be to work with them and get them to kick in some funding and labor towards that project as well. So it's not like there's not necessarily an immediate problem. The system hasn't failed. We're just looking at this and thinking that we could probably redesign this and do better. It would, I think, pay for itself probably in about 20 years with the money we're spending on the tight tank pumping.
That's my question. How many times a year do we pay $600?
So we're having it pumped, it's around $650 every time, and they're getting pumped 4 to 5 times a year. So based on that math, it could be 15 to 20 years. A pump system would be fairly expensive. It would basically be an improvement over what we have. We wouldn't be stressed about, if you have a toilet running, that's $300 right there, because it just filled the tank.
So the 10,000 or 7,500 or whatever is for the septic perk testing and then a design. How much would the actual construction and building of the leach field and the tanks cost?
Correct. So that we don't know, and I think without the design, we don't have those numbers. So the complication here is we can't locate a new leaching field inside the zone 2 of an existing public water supply, which we have at the park, which is all our water. So that limits us to just that corner of the park where Lowell Field is the only area that's at least 400 feet away. Is Veterans Field that doesn't help us, which of course is the wettest part of the park. So it may very well turn out that this area does not perk, and I don't think we're gonna want a big giant raised system. So I think their breakout for just the perk testing was $950. And then we have to have somebody do the activation part. So I think that's step one, is find out if this perks, find out if this is at all feasible. And if it's not, then we stop and we're done. If it is feasible, then we would continue with the septic design and then find out what it would cost.
So putting in a new system will definitely benefit the concession stand. They'd be able to do water much better than they do now with the hose. What would the advantages be to the current bathroom facilities?
So
Would they be improved by having a leach field instead of a tight tank?
not directly, no. We are looking separately. I would like to renovate those bathrooms. I think that's the next investment at the beach. That doesn't necessarily relate to the capacity of the septic system. It's more about the people that use the beach. Again, we'd love to completely rebuild those. And that will likely be a separate request that will come once we have time to design that and understand what that looks like. And again, what's possible with zoning and right up the road there.
Would any potential renovations require a leach field septic system?
No. So we have a septic design for the beach that takes into account the capacity of the beach.
So the most that would happen is you might end up emptying the tight tanks 6 times a year.
Theoretically not,
If you had a few more fixtures.
because I think you really have to, I mean, I would love to be that busy at the beach, but I think you have the same number of people. What I'd like to do is have numerous small, like right now you have a bathroom with those showers. We can't use the showers because they go into a tight tank. I'd like to have individual single occupancy units, sink, toilet, that's it, that are, maybe you have 3 or 4 that people can change in.
So there
Better
are
use of the existing space.
there are limitations to improving the.
Okay, that was my question. So you're saying, yes, if I had a leach field, I could improve the bathrooms a whole lot more than they are now.
I actually think we could do either project independent of each other. I don't think they're related.
Okay.
I'm not saying that they need to be done together. It's more of step one, if you have a septic with leach field, you can then say, well, I can turn on the showers, or I can turn on the showers. I can put on these other additional benefits for people who are using the beach that because I have a tight tank, I'm unable to execute on.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't see you're right. It would enable us to do a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the consequence of not doing it. Why, this is one of my newbie questions. Why is this coming out of free cash and not your revolving fund?
So I think we do try and be as self-funding as we can.
So we talked about this with select board. We think there's a wider interest to the town in using free cash as kind of seed money. And then in my write-up in my report here, I talk about how construction cost is unknown, but currently estimated in the $60,000 range. And the select board would look to the Parks Commission to use some of their existing financial resources to partially pay for eventual construction. So the free cash has a lot more on hand than the Parks Revolving Fund. So at this point where we don't know if the project's ultimately viable based upon design and perk, and if it comes back and it's a $500,000 project, then it's also not really viable. So the select board thought it was useful to use townwide resources for seed money and then look to the specific revolving fund to fund a lot of the park specific project afterwards.
Well, I don't think that's a capital investment. Improvement.
I would also, there is the other slight variation is if it turns out that this can't perk, we may look to just do a tight tank with the Lowell Field concession stand. And at that point, we would work with them because it would primarily benefit them and look to them. Maybe we'll help with the design, but
I'm sorry, Mike. What did you say about the investment? I couldn't hear you at the end there.
Sounds like that improvement would be a capital investment for the town.
Yeah, certainly would be. This is kind of how as we think of like phasing a project, and even though it's a $600 and something thousand or $60,000 project, and this slice is only worth $10,000, we still think of this as a capital project because the ultimate project would end up triggering our capital stuff. So this is on our capital plan as a phase 1 project.
But this design, excuse me, includes obviously the leach field and another tank, obviously for waste.
Yeah, so the idea would be you'd use the existing tight tank as your pump chamber,
Yeah.
and then a new tank and a leaching field at the park.
Right.
You know, and unfortunately, it could be expensive because of the pumping and all that. In the past, there were some relationships with youth sports in the excavation world that they were discussing being able to do some of the labor of the work, but we'll find out.
Well, you can't plan the projects unless you have the information. This is the first step to get the information, and it's an investment in the town and in an area we're already have made great investments in and trying to better a resource for the town, so. All right, any other questions or comments from?
Do you have a layout showing it, plan kind of thing that we can look at too, to say we're looking at going?
I could like draw something up, sketch out what I'm looking to do. That might be helpful, yeah.
And make a plot plan.
Just show you that, yeah, for people not familiar with the property.
Are you gonna be within 100 feet of the water?
Send that.
Conservation Commission here?
Was that's part of this, is it would locate
Yeah.
stuff outside the buffer zone, because that's a huge challenge as we learned with the beach project. All right, so yeah, so I will draw something up so we have that on hand. I can send it to you all.
Great. All right, any other questions or comments? Thanks, Dan. That was the only one, right?
No, there's another one.
So there's the beach kayak rental station. CPC, this was to be funded with CPA money, and CPC voted to table this and discuss it later. So that article will be passed over at town meeting. And then the other one was one of Dan's other roles, which was senior center emergency well repair. If you wanted to talk about that while he was here.
Yeah, one too.
Yeah.
And then so that
That's too bad about the kayak.
it'll come back. We didn't have all the information. It needed a little more work. Let's see. Yeah, let me just find the email with the numbers in it so I make sure I say the right thing. So unfortunately, we ran into a problem. So the senior center is one of our public water supplies that's managed by the Water Commission.
Little
Sorry,
town.
what?
What's up, Jesse?
Oh, sorry. I was asking a question to someone else.
So we ran into an issue that they started having issues with fecal coliform failure tests in the water. Went through that whole process, had to chlorinate the well, flush the well, test the well, repeat.
The well at the senior
The
center.
well at the senior center.
How deep is that well?
I can look in a moment and tell you right here. Well, I'll look it up, but I can. So basically, it triggered an assessment by the state. They ordered us to do a full camera inspection of the well. What's called is level 1, level 2 assessments. So we had to come out, pull the well pump, do a full inspection of the well, which they did. In the process of pulling the well pump, they discovered that the well pump was in the process of failing. I believe the insulation was worn out. So they recommended, they're already there, they've already done half the labor, replace it now. So they did end up replacing the pump. So all told, that cost was $9,400. It was $2,000 in labor for oversight from the water operator. It was $160 in testing, and then the well company was $6,200 for the inspection of the pump. They did identify some fractures in the bedrock below the casing of the well. That was all transmitted to DEP to review. At this point, DEP seems to be okay with things. They did flush everything out. There are no more, the water is safe again. I mean, it was never really unsafe, but the water is now allowed to be drunk. And DEP has closed it. We should be aware that this could come back in the future. It's an old well. It wasn't necessarily drilled with modern standards. Hopefully this was just a one-off. It's possible that the well pump failing contributed towards this. That, you know, we had a problem at the park where water was stagnating and causing issues. But the ask right now is for, I believe, $11,000, and it's to cover this unplanned expense, and then an additional $1,000 in a buffer. This is the testing line for the water department, because we've run into a few issues with the town hall. water's gonna need to take a look at that line item for next year's budget and make sure that we're truly accounting for everything.
So let me ask you, so this money's already been spent?
Yeah, so we had a testing line, this isn't money, so we basically spent the money in our budget, because if we didn't.
So you want to replace it?
So we need to replace it.
Okay. Not that you didn't spend money you didn't have.
No.
You can't do that.
We just, unfortunately, we didn't really have a choice.
It's a loss.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Please.
That's right. The only thing that they can spend money they don't have is plowing snow.
Well permit. The well is 280 feet? No, 300 feet. The pump is at 280 feet.
How many gallons a minute does it produce? Do you have that information?
Yeah, I just clicked away from it. This says, oh, come on. 12
gallons a minute?
12 gallon a minute. I mean, this has been one of our good wells. It's clean. We have no issues we had no PFAS. But
Manganese, iron.
it's been great for all those. So that's been good. And I mean, in the future of this property, I think there's much bigger discussions to be had about how we invest money in the well. But in the short term, they need water for the senior center.
Mm-hmm.
And any follow-on use the building is used for.
So
in the future.
I think that's where this is for right now. I mean, anyway, there's options to potentially repair the well. It doesn't necessarily mean it's done for, but
yeah,
hopefully, knock on wood.
When you say repair the well, what do you mean by
I
that?
think they would reline it and do a casing further down to where the fractures are. If you want, I can forward you the YouTube video. They sent it to us of the whole inspection.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I'm
It is
interested in looking at that.
You mean, as they went down?
Yeah, because so the issue here is you have surface water, it gets into the well and contaminates it.
okay. Any other questions or comments for Dan? Okay. Jeremy, are there any other articles that Dan should address?
No, I think that was all. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so, discussion with town administrator regarding special town meeting. This will include, voting on recommendations to the town for the articles. So I would expect us to go down, each article and, we can take a roll call vote on whether we recommend to the town at town meeting to support the article or not. So Jeremy, can you put on the screen your version of the articles that also has the funding amounts and making sure we're hitting all the ones we need to give recommendations on, because I know it's not all of them. So.
Yep. So can you see here? I've got an Excel with a running list of numbers and then the warrant on the other side.
Perfect.
Before you start doing the articles, can you explain where the 700,000 free cash showed up that you weren't expecting over your 1.5 estimate?
No, it was just certified today, and I've asked our accountant for a breakdown. About 300,000 of it was in collected back taxes, but the other 400,000, I'm not sure. So I've asked for a breakdown of what was submitted to DOR so I can go through it and right size. Because if you'll remember, when we did this last year, it was based upon the 24 budget closeout, and that was the cash we had. And this is based upon the 25 budget closeout, neither of which were budgets that I prepared. So next year at this point will be the first free cash certification having closed out a budget I prepared. So I'm trying to figure out the ins and outs of it now, and I plan to by the time we get to town meeting. But like I said, I just got this today, so I don't have the details.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So I'll just go ahead and start if that's all right with you, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
All right. I'm going to get rid of this one to not confuse people. So the first one, bills of a prior year. So we actually did a really good job at closeout this year on getting everything encumbered. And the only bills that we have, I thought we had some other ones, but the only bills we have are National Grid bills, which you can see the billing period goes back to the start of calendar year 24. And this was due to an inactivated meter. And they've used some historic data. There's a DPU ruling about about doing back billing from NGrid when their billing system went out. It doesn't apply to municipalities. So we're trying to get some of these, waived through that. But I'm not super confident in our ability to do that because we don't really have a legal leg to stand on. We're just asking very nicely. But these were bills that otherwise would have been paid throughout for town hall. Throughout the billing period you see here, and we just never received the bills. It totals $16,355.33.
So does that mean there's a excess in that account because we haven't been paying?
So if you'll recall, at the end of fiscal years, those accounts get closed out. So these numbers rolled over to free cash in ways that they otherwise would not have. If we spent in fiscal year 24, had we spent this $5,263, free cash at the end of the year would have been lower by that amount. And the same thing with these fiscal 25 invoices. Had we gotten the bills on time and paid them from their current year appropriation, it would have been, free cash would have been $11,000 lower than it was.
Why is April 24, April 25 significantly lower?
Say that again.
The rows for April 2024, April 2025, they're significantly lower than the surrounding months.
Yeah, different usages. I don't know.
Because I would expect, if it's just because of the weather, I'd expect to see the same kind of dip in September.
We have different solar credits that are taken at different times as well. My guess would be that we have an increased amount of solar credits available as we get more sunshine coming out of March. And we have yet to use an increased amount of energy to use to cool the building.
Okay, so that's going to, these numbers, the monthly bills do not directly reflect the amount of electricity consumed. Okay.
Are you saying we have solar panels?
No, we're part of community solar aggregation. So we get solar, we get solar energy, and then we get the credits for using solar energy. And then the company that built the solar panels then bills us for 80% of the credit that we get. So we take the full weight of the credit on our invoice, on our invoices from National Grid, and then we get a separate invoice for 80% of that credit, and we pay that to the company that built the solar panels.
The one guarantee in dealing with solar is the schedule and the billing are always going to be wonky, and you can never get the grid and the solar company to be ticking and tying exactly. It's always a little wonky, so it's very hard to explain a stream to anybody that wants to see a comparison. I do it all the time.
Yep, that's why I stopped asking.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a motion to vote to approve recommending to the town to support Article 1?
I'll make a motion to approve Article 1.
Second.
All those in favor, please remember roll call vote.
Runsford, aye.
Mendeley, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Curl eye.
Gregor, aye. All right. Next one.
Mike, do you just want me to go after Carl every time to make so we don't have silence?
Yep.
Okay, I will. Thanks.
Second is stabilization fund. So I have a note in here. I'm not don't know that I'll include this or not, but I recall the motion to have a $300,000 total to stabilization. So between this and the closing of the dump truck fund, it's $275,000. So select board hasn't considered this recommendation, and the ultimate motion may perhaps wind up differently, but that's out of floor, we'll have this 200 plus another 75.
So we'll vote this one at the meeting?
Sorry, I totally lost you, Jeremy. I apologize. I feel like my mind just flaked out listening to you.
Yeah, no problem. No, so at the last FinCom meeting, the FinCom said we recommend a total of 300,000 to stabilization. And between this and the other one, there's 275 as presented right now. Select board hasn't considered your motion. We had a meeting that went until almost 11 last week, and this didn't come up as one of the things to talk about because the motions aren't finalized before town meeting anyway. So if you want to keep the recommendation of 300,000, and that's what, but right now, as I wrote this, it's a $200,000 contribution here to keep us in line with our 7 to 10% of general fund expenditures in the stabilization fund.
I'm going to say that because that's how we aligned upon last meeting, we'll keep that and we'll let the select board vote. And this can be one that we vote right before town meeting.
Yeah. Capital expenditure account, the home rule petition in our bylaws lets us put $100,000 a year into this. And that's what this does. Plan is to liquidate most of it to pay for the Providence Street Culvert project.
Any questions or comments? All right, can I get a motion to recommend to the town approving Article 3?
I'll make a motion to approve Article 3.
What was the money value again?
$100,000, which is the maximum that the special act allows us to put into this account per year.
Second.
All those in favor?
Zamuda, aye.
Mendeleev, aye.
Humble, aye.
Pearl, I.
Gregor, aye. Okay.
Next is other post-employment benefits. So I just took a look at our post-employment benefit statements for the latest report we have is for June 2024. We have a $4.9 million liability, which is down about $130,000 from the period prior, attributable to our contributions above what's called the normal service cost, which is just what it costs each year to fund our OPEBs, and then the robust investment performance of the fund itself. So in my financial policies, I'd written that our first base year is $50,000 into OPEB, and each contribution each year should rise at least at the rate of the general fund increasing. I did a little bit more aggressive here and did $60,000 because we had the one-time cash to be able to pay down our long-term liabilities. So this article will be for a $60,000 contribution into the OPEB trust fund.
Any questions or comments? All right, can I get a motion to vote to recommend to the town to support Article 4?
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 4.
Second.
All those in favor?
Zamuda, aye.
Mendeleev, aye.
Humble, aye.
Pearl, I.
Gregor, aye.
Great. And if at any point any of you are like, you've talked about this too much, move on to something else, let's just vote, just let me know. I will gladly shut up. So Article 5, fire department leases. These are normal operating costs of the fire department, where we meaning the fire chief and I had a misunderstanding of when these leases end. So now they're centrally managed in a repository for our long-term liabilities in the treasurer's office, because we need to report them on our financial statements. The chief is now keenly aware of this sort of thing, and now I am keenly aware of asking this sort of thing to other department heads. So these are general fund expenditures which are going to happen year over year. So the request is to appropriate, because the article says vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer a sum of money. And most of these we're talking about transferring a sum of money or appropriating from free cash. This is actually voting to raise it. So we've got about $110,000 worth of new growth above and beyond the initial estimate that we calculated based upon the Board of Assessors recommendation. So this would appropriate $75,577.17 of it into this line as we do our tax rate recapitulation.
Is there a reason why this isn't done in the yearly budget? It's gonna be done in a special? I'm not quite understanding.
Yeah, so what I had prefaced this, what I started saying is that the fire chief thought these leases were up, and we were unaware that we had these lease costs in fiscal 26. So they should be part of the general fund budget, and they will be. There's actually another lease payment in 27 for one of these vehicles that we'll have as part of the general fund budget. So yeah, it should have been part of the budget. It has been previously. Other types like the track list that we were talking about are part of the budget, and we missed this. We made a mistake. So that's why it's here using new growth to appropriate in or to raise, because we want it to be reflective of the year-over-year nature. It's not a one-time cost. It should be paid for with recurring revenues.
I'm sorry. What are these leases for?
So there's
fire engine and I see. Okay.
Yeah, there's two leases, a 2020 engine and a 2020 SUV.
And that's $110 a year?
It's $75,577.17. The 110 is that our new growth estimate was about $110,000. Our certified new growth was about $110,000 over our estimate off of which we built the budget. So we have an additional $110,000 to raise and appropriate in the general fund.
See. And we typically lease fire engines?
We have. It essentially is just financing it over 8 years, and then you own it at the end. We're not turning it back.
There's no buyout. It's an equal 8 years.
Yeah, it's an equal 8 years. I think it's a $1 buyout at the end.
Okay, so it's 8-year financing.
Yeah, they're called they're capital leases.
Capital leases, yes. Okay.
So they get reported on our end of year financial statements.
Understood now. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a tangential question. Do you have you dedicated the remaining 35,000 new growth to something else?
We will make our local receipts more conservative.
You guys understand that? Because I don't.
No. What do you mean make your local receipts more conservative?
So
So
we've passed the budget with a dollar bottom level figure of 20. I'll call it 24 million, and now we have an additional 110,000 to make it a $24.11 million budget. So we're using 75 of it here to say we need to pay for these leases, and there's an additional $35,000, and in order to create a balanced budget of $24.11 million that includes estimates on other things, local receipts and state aid being one of them, or being two of them. So we will lower those estimates and keep our both revenue and expenditure budget at $24.11 million. It's something we do every single year as part of the tax rate recap process.
Balancing act.
Yeah.
So local receipts are things like excise taxes, marijuana money. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, and how is this recurring? I thought this was one time due to. Yeah. No, I was expecting this to be one time. You said this is recurring.
So it's one time in that it will be part of the general fund budget as we build it next year. It's one time now because we missed it. It was in the budget last year, and then we were under the impression that these leases were up. So we then used this money to pay for the turnout gear that we talked about earlier, the cyclical replacement. We put that on the general fund, and we had it used for some equipment purchases. So the money on the general fund has been repurposed for a new purpose, and we realized we had this original purpose that we shouldn't have thrown out so quickly. So this will be part of the fire department's general fund budget request for fiscal 2027.
Right. The vehicle to pay for this at the moment is a one-time thing. The bill for it is not a one-time thing.
Correct. Well, the vehicle in doing this additional appropriation is one time, but I'm using new growth because new growth is recurring, and I want a match recurring revenues with recurring, because now that new growth has been certified, now it just goes into the base property tax levy, and we can raise it by 2.5% each year.
All right. Get it. It's a vernacular. And, okay, I'm good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this article? All right. Can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 5?
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 5.
Second,
All those in favor?
Zumuto, aye.
Mendel, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Krager, aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next one.
Article 6 does not have a financial expenditure of money. Article 7 does not have an expenditure of money. Article 8 doesn't either. Article 9 will pass over because it's accidentally duplicating Article 8. I was given two sets of wording. It doesn't matter for here, but we're going to skip over Article 9 as well. 10, there's these are all bylaws. Zoning cleanup. Highway dump truck fund closure. So this is one of those things that it doesn't have to do with the expenditure of money, but just the layman's interpretation of what the finance committee does. I feel like you should have an opinion on whether we should close out a fund we're not using or not. So I leave it up to you whether you want to take a vote or not, or if you want me to write NA underneath your recommendation.
Why don't we take a vote?
So we talked about this before, but it is superfluous to our needs. These lease payments are budgeted each year in the general fund, and they have been.
All right. Any other questions or comments?
This requires 2/3 vote? Because it's going, no, sorry, majority because you're putting money in. Never mind.
Yeah, it's 2/3 to come out. Yep, good question though. So just so everyone's aware too, town council and town clerk work together to come up with the vote thresholds for all this. So we have it in advance before town meeting. I don't know them off the top of my head. She's much better with that, and she's the one who keeps the tabs on that.
In your slide, they'll get in your slide deck.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Or none. Make a motion. Can I get a motion to recommend to the town support Article 15?
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 15.
Second,
All those in favor?
Zumuto, aye.
Mendel, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Curley.
Krager, aye.
Great, thank you. And then this is the other piece of that, what John Dudley just talked about. So $75,000 to purchase a dump truck. He talked about, mid 60s, and then perhaps a plow at about 8,000 or something. So again, I always like to have a little bit more in here because there'll be things like radios and lettering and stuff like that. So it's never going to be kind of 1-to-1 on the dollar amount.
Any questions or comments? All right. Can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 16?
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 16.
Second,
All those in favor?
Zumuto, aye.
Mendel, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Curley.
Krager, aye.
Great. And now I see one where maybe we should, all right, I'll get there. Landfill. So we talked about this, I think at length last time. We have some monitoring wells that are not in a space that will adequately or legally monitor what they need to at the old landfill. So we requested, without knowing that, we requested decreased testing requirements. That would save the town some money. This was discovered. So now we need to put the wells where they should have been all along. So it gets accurate data to folks nearby, or to us to inform folks nearby. We're going to do some testing of their wells as well. And then it includes a 10% contingency to be a $22,000 appropriation. And then the payback based upon the lessened testing requirements each year would be about 3 years.
Any questions or comments? We did have a lengthy conversation last time.
At our last meeting, you took an action item to find out what would be the consequences if we didn't do this. Did you get any feedback from the state?
Increased regulatory oversight from DEP. They had languages up to and including legal action, because we're not upholding our side of the original agreement to accurately monitor. So I got a vague, you better do it sort of thing.
As long as you have a convincing statement to give in town meeting if someone from the floor asks that question.
Yeah.
How long do we have to continue monitoring the wells?
That is a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Let me send an email to Board of Health right now so I don't forget.
This was a case where we actually monitored them.
We were doing the right thing.
Doing the right thing,
But in the essence of finding doing the right thing, we found that we did the wrong thing
Right.
a long time ago.
Right, but then what they want us to do is actually going to be less stringent than what we were doing.
No.
I thought that was the case.
So previously we have a number of wells. I'm not sure how many, 6 to 7 wells, and 3 of them are placed incorrectly that we didn't quite know about. And we said, hey, look, our numbers are doing so well. Let us test a fewer amount a year, spend less on testing. And DEP came in and reviewed all the data and said, the data you're getting from these 3 wells is not sufficient because of where they're placed. You need to place them in these other places. It's our opinion and our consultant's opinion that we're still going to get good results based upon the good wells that we do have. So we will have a decreased testing requirement going forward. But now, like I said before, we can't unring the bell and can't just say, nope, let us just go back to testing a bunch and not doing any more wells.
No, I wasn't. I was just questioning that the 3 that they questioned are
We discussed
to
this.
move further away, I thought. Isn't that correct?
We discussed this at length.
Yeah.
Not everything makes sense for what
That's what I'm
DEP
saying.
driving.
Yeah.
But the whole purpose of the wells is
Right.
to be on the perimeter of
Correct.
to make sure that things aren't leaking outside.
Right.
So.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or commentary?
There's only one other thing is we have a consultant. Did our consultant push back on DEP, or did they agree with DEP's assessment that we screwed up in the first place?
I don't know how much our consultant pushed back on this, but talking with our health agent, who has been in this business for quite some time, she's like, yeah, we screwed up on this.
She agreed. Okay, that's all. That's all. Thanks.
Okay.
What health agent was that?
Colleen Strapponi.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 17?
I'll make a motion to recommend to support Article 17.
Second.
All those in favor?
Zulo, aye.
Mendeleev, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Curly.
Krager, aye.
What was the money figure again, one more time?
$22,000. This is one we should have asked Dan about. So if he's still around, shout downstairs or something if you want to talk to him. There is not climate control on the 3rd floor of Town Hall. And there is also, I think this is a change from when we last spoke about it. There are repairs needed to the climate control in the annex building, the red building across from Town Hall. And then we would look for CPA and Green Communities funding to offset the cost of this, but we're asking for the full appropriation here, and then any offset we would turn back and return to free cash. But for both projects, this is a $35,000 ask. Specifically, the executive assistant's office at the top of the stairs, the main meeting room on the upper level, and then the HR coordinator's office in the back of the building don't have either air conditioning or heat. So we're doing it inefficiently at this point. And when we have meetings in the upper town hall in the summertime, we've got window unit ACs running until the meeting starts and then turning them off because they're too loud. And then the room gets very hot. So this would be to climate control the whole of the upper level and then fix the issues in the annex.
The split between the annex piece and the other piece?
About 25 and 10. I think it was 22 and change and then 12 or something like that. But it's 2/3 at town hall.
Okay, great. Any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 18?
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 18.
Second.
All those in favor?
Zulo, aye.
Mendeleev, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Curly.
Krager, aye.
Senior Center emergency well repair. So you just talked with Dan about this. Do you have any other questions or anything you want me to expand upon?
Anything from the committee? I'm good.
So just a point of information for the committee. The HR coordinator just told me she gets heat in her office, but not air conditioning. It's just the executive assistant who doesn't get heat. Just letting everybody know.
So this is the $11,000 for the well.
Yep.
Jeremy, you'll be sending out a copy of this to the FinCom so that everybody's got the copies with the dollar amounts on them.
Yeah, I'm going to polish the language a little bit because I was rushing on some of the narratives this afternoon, but it will be out tomorrow in both your inboxes and then posted online.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 19?
I'll make a motion to recommend support Article 19.
Second.
All those in favor?
Smoot, aye.
Mendel, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Curly.
Gregor, aye.
Great. The next Assessor GIS mapping software, so talked about this as well. Right now, we have a quote from a vendor called Nearmap, which is kind of the industry standard. Gives us a lot of aerial photography level, would be useful to conservation, to planning, to building, as well as the assessor's office.
Okay, any other questions or comments? We did talk at length this last time.
The money value?
10,000. All right, can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 20?
I'll make a motion to support Article 20.
Second.
All those in favor?
Smoot, aye.
Mendel, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Curly.
Gregor, aye.
Great. Stormwater asset management grant fund. So I put a little bit more of a narrative in here through our proposal from our consultant. So we'll partner with a vendor for the development of a stormwater asset management plan, help us understand the condition and vulnerabilities of the system, and it will establish a proactive stormwater maintenance, repair, and replacement program to help with budgeting. So it's a $120,000 grant with a January kickoff. We just got our notice to proceed the end of last week, or maybe even today. And then that kickoff is pending this $47,000 local cash match. This request is from free cash.
Any questions or comments?
Someone asks at town hall, will this survey, will spending the total of 167,000 keep us from it being surprised by another culvert washing out? Like the way project did.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speak in absolutes at any point, but it gets us more information and better information with the aim of not being surprised by something like that, and with the knowledge to be able to address it. address it as far ahead of time as practicable.
And the wisdom to know the difference.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 21?
I'll make a motion to support Article 21.
Second.
All those in favor?
Can I just make one more point, Mike? I'm sorry. I thought this was just important for full context. There's also a $33,000 in-kind contribution. So that talks about people's time and wear and tear and stuff on vehicles, driving around doing inventories. So we're also going to, I just want to make sure you have the full financial picture of this, but it's just $47,000 in cash is what we're asking for here.
Okay. Will that context be provided at town meeting as well?
If we discuss it on the floor, I can put it in this. I'll put it in this commentary here. Let me just.
Yeah, I think that's worthwhile. So, okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Smoot, aye.
Mendel, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Curly.
Gregor, aye.
I'm gonna miss it if I don't do this. Okay. Providence Street Culvert construction. We didn't have John talk about this because I think the project itself is a known entity, known quantity. This is an additional $100,000 to go towards construction and offset and eventual borrowing. I forget the timing of this. I forget if I told you all or not, but I think our DER grant kickoff was after this, but the Mass DOT small bridge repair program, the total cap has been for phase 2 from $500,000 in construction costs to up to $100 million. We're eligible for, not necessarily we'll get it all. So that's great news, and we'll likely be able to borrow very little to do this project. We'll still be looking for the full authorization in case we don't get the grant. But it's, excuse me, I'm just cough. I'll try to mute myself. This is just $100,000 from free cash to offset eventual borrowing costs for this needed project.
And eligible up to $1 million, not $100 million, right?
Yeah, eligible up to $1 million in construction costs. The total project cost will be about $2 million. So if we say we've contributed $300,000 already, $200,000 in grants is $500. This $100 would be $600. And then if we can use $1 million in grants, that would be $1.6 million. And if we could use all $500,000 of the Capital X stabilization, that would be $2.1 million. So perhaps we can fund the whole thing out of existing resources. But if we're only granted, $650,000 through the Mass DOT program, then we would need an avenue for the rest, which we would, at the time, either look toward free cash and see where that sits and what our fiscal 27 is looking like, or we would ask for debt authorization and possible debt exclusion for the Delta.
Any other questions or comments? Get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 22.
I'll make a motion to support Article 22.
Second.
All those in favor?
Zamuda, aye?
Mendel, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Crowley.
Fraser, aye.
Fire department turnout gear replacement. This is the $40,000 that the chief talked about earlier to get a second set of, I'm not going to say replacement, I'm going to say purchase, to get a second set for the department.
Any other additional questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd like you to put a note in to follow up on your action item that you will find the state website that says they're pushing local fire departments to get 2 sets for everybody. Not to put the link in there, but to say that it's considered a best practice by a state, and what state agency considers it a best practice, and put that in the commentary.
Yeah, I'll talk with the chief about that.
Okay. All right, can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 23?
I'll make a motion to support Article 23.
Second.
All those in favor?
Zamuda, aye?
Mendel, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Crowley.
Fraser, aye.
The fire department vehicles. So this is both vehicles that were discussed tonight into one item here. I have the specifics written down from the chief from a meeting earlier. I don't have the split, but as he was talking about earlier, we're looking at high 80,000. So the contingency asked for 90,000 here, and this describes the UTV and the boat based upon the 2 write-ups that he shared with the finance committee within the last couple of days.
Chief discussed the split earlier, so I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. I think it was like 65.
65K for the UTV and trailer, under 25,000 for the boat.
25,
Yeah.
not
125.
125.
Yeah.
Under
25.
Under 25K for the boat.
All right, any other questions or commentary?
Yes, 2 points. First, I consulted with town moderator on, there's one warrant article, but there are 2 separate purchases, and I was requesting how can we have a voted town, 2 votes on the 2 individual vehicles. He said there were 2 ways to do it. Either the select board could present 2 motions, one right after the other. The other one would be that if the select board made a motion for both of them, someone from the floor could make a privileged motion to split the question. And he said either of those should be doable. My second point is I'm likely to vote no on this unless people convince me otherwise. I did not hear a compelling use case from the police chief about how many calls there have been for brush fires in the woods or emergencies on the boat. If we have mutual aid with other surrounding towns and we've only needed to have people go in the water 2 times in the last 5 years, I don't see spending money on it, especially since the 2 pieces of equipment would not be usable by any other town department.
My argument on the lake is if one of those times is somebody's loved one here, or one of us, We're gonna wish we had it.
And it would take 10 minutes to get the boat recalled to the beach for a firefighter, just the same amount of time it would take to get from the fire station to the beach.
I don't recall the chief saying that it would only take 10 minutes for regional dispatch to.
Yeah.
No, he said it would take 10 minutes to get a boat from the fire station into the water.
Correct.
Correct.
And that's about, and if another town staffer was using the boat, I don't see it taking more than 10 minutes for them to get a phone call, a cell phone call saying, hey, we need the boat, bring it back to the beach. There's a slightly more compelling case to be made in terms of insurance and training, and it's an inflatable boat. Do we want to try and train someone else to use it? But just looking at the number of incidents that are being reported, I don't, it's an insurance. How much do you want to pay for insurance? I don't look at this as being a compelling amount of insurance that the town should be spending $80,000. We're definitely not on the water support. The water one, the trailer going on trails and doing fire suppression, yeah, that's an easier sell, and that's one of the reasons why I was looking to split the question on the two purchases.
So to put a finer point on your comments, you're saying if the fire department was willing to share the boat or the ATV with other departments, you would be in favor of it.
I think it's more, I don't think the town should be spending that much money just for insurance purposes in case something happens, when there have been a very small number of times in the past few years. So I'm looking to say, no, I don't think it is fiscally responsible to spend money on this. I don't think we're getting enough bang for the buck. If there had been 5 calls on the lake, if there had been a whole lot of more brush fires over the past couple of years, but not for the numbers that he identified.
But you're saying you're for the vehicle for the brush fires.
I'm more inclined to be agreeable on that one because we're getting a whole lot more drought conditions. And I was out walking last spring, and one of the local kids started a fire and didn't put it out, and it was working its way through the sod, and I smelled the smoke and put it out. So yeah, that I'm more willing to do, but I don't see that the lake, spending the money for the lake insurance policy is worthwhile.
Unless we could share it with other departments that could.
If it were shareable with other departments, then it's not going to sit there 364 days in the year.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm pointing out.
I'm interested, again, in seeing what the liability insurance, how much that goes up. And some type of maintenance and training.
Yeah, so liability in terms of operations, we're covered under an umbrella policy on police and fire liability. I forget offhand, but I want to say it's about $125 maybe $1,000 per year that we pay for police and fire liability for stuff that happens in their line of duty. And so in terms of our increased exposure from operating this sort of thing, I think it will just be the normal increased cost in general insurance. There will be an increased cost, like I said, for adding this to our equipment list, but it's likely, I don't want to venture a number, but in the low hundreds of dollars per year to be able to additionally insure these vehicles.
So one option we have is to table this to discussion prior to the town meeting. If you'd like to, if there are folks who want to wait for understanding better the financial liabilities that come with this. Jeremy, are you able to articulate in a better dollar value, or at least approximate range of dollar values that the additional liability would cost the town?
I can try. I'll look to similarly valued pieces of equipment that we have and see if I can break down what our premium base is for that.
And those additional liabilities are simply based off of like, if I was to get personal insurance to cover a dirt bike or whatever, you know, there is an extra rider that comes with that, which is like a few $100 or whatever, right? You're talking about those levels of liabilities. I want to make sure that that liability is in line with what Mr. Mandalia is looking for in terms of extra costs. Okay.
I have another related question about insurance. Emergency personnel, fire, police, when they're performing their duties on the lake or out in the trail, I expect they're covered at a certain rate. If we allow this equipment to be used by other town staffers, code enforcement officer, conservation agent, do they get billed insurance at a different rate because they're not firefighters? That would be another thing to look at, about whether this is equipment that it would make sense to be used by other town departments.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that angle of it. I think the liability insurance protects, you know, kind of duties in their public safety realm, and then our general workers' comp insurance covers people in their general course of duties. So to say that we have 144,000, I think it is, in police, not 125, and that we so there wouldn't be, just because you're driving, you know, a town UTV versus a town vehicle versus walking along the sidewalk, there's not a tie into that. I will say, the chief is not supportive of having these vehicles tied up outside of the department, and I'm inclined to agree as well.
So there's two, let's see. There's the recommendation to want to break up the articles into two separate purchases.
Well, that would require reopening the warrant and then going to the select board. The town moderator said it would be sufficient at town meeting to have sequential motions or to have a motion on the floor to split them.
Actually, technically, because there is a double, Jeremy, how does this work? If one of the articles is being passed over or removed because it's a duplicate, if we wanted to recommend to the select board to split these into two articles, would we be able to take the place of one of the other articles?
No, the warrant's already been finalized, signed, and posted.
Okay, all right. All right, so that's not an option. All right, so can I get a motion to vote on tabling the article until we find more information about the financial insurance liabilities and retake a vote on right before the town meeting?
So moved.
I'll make that motion.
I just did. So moved.
I'm sorry.
If you'd like to second it, you can second it.
Making it work harder for the secretary.
That's the reason why.
All right.
That's the reason why I'm doing it. Okay. Yeah, because I took those.
Mike moved.
Yeah.
Ron seconded.
I'll second it.
All right.
I'm sorry.
All those in favor?
I think we need a discussion, right?
Oh, yeah, so I'm sorry. Any discussion on this?
I think we're tabling for hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. It seems,
Can you guarantee that?
I can't guarantee that, but that's what I was just led to believe by.
So.
I think based on Jeremy's history in public service, his inclination is probably pretty correct. So I think we might be tabling for splitting some hairs here.
We're tabling for $80,000.
Okay, points taken. It's actually for $90,000. So the article's for $90,000.
Yep, carry the 5.
All right, any other further discussion?
That wasn't what we were tabling for. I just wanted to be clear.
Motion.
All right, so you are correct. We are tabling this because of the input, which could be anywhere from hundreds of dollars to an unknown amount.
Correct.
Jeremy, did you have another comment to add in while I'm taking comments?
Yeah, I know. I agree with Jesse's interpretation that the motion was to table for discussion on possible insurance exposure, not for overall cost or anything else. It was just for that.
Yeah, we're going to table it, and then we will be voting on the $90,000 come the meeting before special town meeting,
If we get the information.
assuming we get the information, correct? Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor in tabling this article to the meeting before town meeting?
Zamir or nay? I'd like to vote on it now personally.
Mendele, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Crowley.
Craig, your aye. All right, so we'll table this one until right before the meeting, and Jesse will take the action to get the insurance
Justin.
liability exposure.
Jeremy, you were close, Jesse.
You guys are right next to
I
each other on
corrected the wrong
the
person.
screen, and I'm looking at Jesse, and I'm saying,
Yeah, but then Jesse said Justin, so
Then
you all
I
messed
said
it up.
Justin.
all right.
AJ.
Let's get that in the minutes.
So this should be 150. I didn't change it here. So this is the backhoe loader. I have 150 here. So I know John talked about the 150 minus a $20,000 trade-in. Depending on when we actually are able to purchase this, I wanted to have the request be for the full quote of the item, just in case, we blow a engine or something on this and the salvage value of it is quite a bit less. And then the same thing with the dump truck that, there's going to be some ancillary pieces that we'll want to pick up on the fund. So the request is for $150,000 from free cash.
And I think he did say the approximate trade-in was 25,000.
That's what he had on the document from a year ago. And then I had anticipated wear and tear, but if he said 25 tonight, I didn't see that. So I'll put that in here if that's what he said.
Yeah, he did say that tonight, but you are right, that was from a year ago, so. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 25?
I'll make a motion to support Article 25.
Second.
All those in favor?
Zamir, aye.
Mendele, aye.
Hummel, aye.
I just want a point of clarification before I vote. Ultimately, this is going to be an approximate 125,000. It's going to come up. So Ron had pointed that out. If it's 150 minus 25 or 175 minus 25, it's actually 150 minus 25. So I just wanted to clarify that. And Crowley.
Craig, or aye. And yes, that's my understanding of what I voted on, and I think that that's what it reads here. What Jeremy explained was the point was to go for the entire 150 just in case something catastrophic happens, and the trade-in value goes down significantly.
And if we get the trade-in, the 25K goes to free cash.
Correct. Okay, all right, next up.
Excellent. Beach bathroom and septic study. So this is what Dan talked about. And it's a $10,000 request from free cash as seed money for the eventual, hopeful eventual design of a septic system at Memorial Fields.
Any other additional questions or comments?
I'm going to vote no on this one for the same reason. I don't think there was a compelling use case. I don't think there's a reason to do a feasibility study when they weren't able to really identify how the existing facilities would be improved by it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 26?
I'll make a motion to support Article 26.
Second.
All those in favor?
Zamir, aye.
Mendele, aye.
Hummel, no.
Crowley.
Craig, or aye? Motion passes.
We'll pass over the beach kayak rental like we talked about before. Senior center upgrades. So there was an inspection of the back of the rear deck at the senior center. I think we talked about this last time. And it's unsafe and not usable as an egress. The upper level of the senior center does not require a separate additional egress. The egresses as construed now are sufficient, but as constructed are insufficient. So this would be to rip down and replace the rear deck with a smaller space. Talking with the senior center director and folks who have used the facility extensively, even when the deck was in better repair, it wasn't heavily utilized, and they don't have plans to heavily utilize it. They kind of built their programs over not having it. So it would be a smaller space, but it would prioritize the ramp being ADA accessible, so people can egress the building quickly and safely, even with mobility issues, in ways that the front ramp doesn't accomplish because of the radius on the turn. So initially, Senior Center was looking at $65,000+ to do this, and then it was $20,000, $25,000 just to do a small piece. So talking with a few different vendors in the space, kind of came up with a pretty back of the envelope, but a number in the middle of those two things to accomplish a small open air space with a suitable egress.
So just
Addition,
to be clear, we by taking a step back and thinking about this and ensuring that the seniors are safe, but that we're not overbuilding the senior center, ultimately we saved about $20,000, I think, right?
yeah, and I was just about to say that we don't want to build something that's specific to a senior center use, and then it not be useful for a legacy use or a future use of the legacy center. So we think this threads the needle a little bit better.
Yeah. I just think it's important to point out that there's been a lot of discussion about this. People thought about it and thought about the future possible uses of the senior center, and that we shouldn't just do something that hasn't been significantly thought about. So I appreciate everybody's time and comments on this. It saved a good amount of money.
All right, any other questions or comments?
No problem. Just the total value of it again?
45.
45,000.
How probable is it that a future occupant of the building would need to have ADA ramp to the second floor?
100%.
So we'd have to do it anyway.
Because it's a public building, right?
Yeah. So the genesis of this building is mired in some lack of documentation. So we kind of opened it without the ADA compatibility there. We haven't done significant work on the building to trigger code work. But if we were to retrofit this building for use in the future, or even when we go and do a roof that it's going to need, we would trigger code compliance. So this kind of gets us ahead of that.
Yep.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 28?
Make a motion to support Article 28.
Second.
All those in favor?
Zamudo, aye?
Mendeley, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Probably.
Gregor, aye.
This is similar but different to the dump truck one from before, and you all voted to a recommendation on closing the account. So this is an engineering account related to beach improvements. CPA funded it. The project's over, and we're just looking to go back to CPA.
Okay. Any questions?
Dollar value? I can't see it.
25.
There's a balance of $2,514.82 in the fund.
25 on it.
Yeah.
25, 1482, yeah.
Yeah, 2,500, not 25,000.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 30?
I'll make a motion to support Article 30.
Second.
All those in favor?
Zamudo, aye?
Mendeley, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Probably.
Gregor, aye.
I got a little bit more clarity on this because I also didn't know what an 81X boundary plan was. There is about a 10-acre plot of land where we have gone through all the necessary steps as prescribed by law to try to identify the owner, and we cannot identify the owner. We're starting a tax taking process where the town could take ownership of the land, but first we need to define the bounds of the property. So this would be using $4,700 from the Mendon Land Bank. It's got a small balance. I've put in a note to the accountant. I don't actually know the balance there yet, but this would potentially open up the ability for the town to take ownership of this land through the long and arduous, not arduous, the long and detailed process.
Tedious is the word you're looking for.
Yeah.
And this has nothing to do with the Trask side of things,
Nope.
right?
Nope.
Yeah.
Totally. Just got on my radar as we were putting the warrant
Okay.
together. This is brand new.
All right, any other questions or comments?
I attended the land use meeting where they discussed this. I'd like to ask Jeremy about the word conceivably. I don't see why we would want to spend the money if the town isn't going to make a strong commitment to doing it.
Because there's a legal process on the back end, and should the proper owner be found and pay the taxes at the end of it, there's the opportunity for the private entity to retain ownership.
Right, I agree, but what I would like to have is some kind of wording in the commentary to say that if the town spends the money to determine the boundaries, there's an expectation that we will continue through the process of taking ownership until such time as the unknown owner becomes known.
There might be something else that we could probably put a scroll of things that could conceivably happen prior to it happening. So it seems like we would have to come up with a lot of different reasons if we wanted to get this specific, I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
No, I ended with, I think.
No, I'll take it to heart. And a few other times, the comments have improved the commentary. Like on the next one, as you'll see on 32, took your commentary. I'll think on that one, but no promises.
Yeah.
What's the approximate size of the parcel that we're talking about?
10 acres.
It's landlocked.
So the town benefits by saying these 10 acres are exactly located here, and through all the things, everything gets cleared. We just the town of Mendon ends up owning that. There's no purchase or payments or anything. It's essentially $4,700 to hopefully end up with 10 acres of property added to. Mendon.
According to the land committee discussion, after the surveying, the town does step A, step B, step C, step D, and at the end of all of those steps, we get it.
Yeah, and
rather than just advertising for a year.
The tax title process has changed after Supreme Court case regarding kind of equity theft in Minnesota. And so it's become, in the last year, it's become a lot more complicated for towns to do this. So we have a prescribed process, like Carl had said. We have a few properties in various stages of tax taking. So the legal work related to this one, as opposed to other ones, it will be a few hours over the course of a few years. The legal piece will be inconsequential as the facts currently stand.
And the reason why the land use committee is interested in this parcel is because it's south of Lake Nipmuc in that very sensitive area, and it would be beneficial if the town owned it.
Okay.
See, I like that piece of the language, Carl. I'll add something to that effect into there.
Like I said in our conversation, 5% of my suggestions and questions are good ones.
All right, any other questions or comments on this one? All right, can I get a motion to recommend to the town to support Article 31?
I'll make a motion to support Article 31.
Second?
All those in favor?
Zoom aye.
Wendell, aye?
Hubble, aye.
Relay.
Gregor, aye.
More account closings. Thank you, everyone. More account closings.
I'm sorry, good.
No, no worries. The article language is set, and that's how they exist on our ledger, but I reformatted this to be in ascending amount. So it gets of greater consequence as you go through. We talked about these last time. Nothing's changed except the manner in which they're presented. So it would close out completed funds back to free cash. Undesignated fund balance is free cash.
Great. In other places in this document, you say free cash, so you should standardize on the two.
So free cash is what gets certified by the Department of Revenue, and what goes into the certification of free cash, which is available for us to use and appropriate. What goes into that is your undesignated fund balance, less a bunch of deducts, and then a couple of credits added back in. So undesignated fund balance is the term to use in the intra-year period, and then free cash is the term to use once it's been certified by the Department of Revenue.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments?
This was 52,000. 52. Oh, 31.
All right, hearing none, can I get a motion to recommend the town to support Article 32?
I'll make a motion to support Article 32.
Second,
All those in favor?
Zuniga, aye.
Mendeley, right?
Hummel, aye.
Curly,
Frager, aye.
I should have said this during discussion, but the reason why undesignated fund balance is also different here is because it has not been certified, so it's not available for us to use. So this is not like a 52,000 that I would add back into the number over here. This is 52,000 that we have to wait until the certification at this point next year to have available for our use. But now that it's not committed to something, the treasurer can put it in a slightly more aggressive interest-bearing situation. This is the supplemental road funding that John Dudley talked about at length. I have in here in the commentary stuff from his presentation. So just giving some folks a tease as to what we're doing, what the 27 plans and 28 plans are. And if we didn't do this, then we would do fewer of those projects.
Any other additional questions or comments that we didn't have for John before?
50,000.
Okay. Can I get a motion to recommend to the town support Article 33?
I'll make a motion to support Article 33.
Second,
All those in favor?
Zuniga, aye.
Mendeley, aye.
Hummel, aye.
Curly,
Frager, aye.
Great, and I believe that's the last one. We've got community preservation bylaw, gender neutral bylaw. Just if I didn't go over this, we passed the gender neutral bylaw, but we didn't say what we were changing. So they're like, yes, that's approved, but there was no changes that were approved. So we just have to do it one more time.
And I'm going to have a lot of fun explaining that one at town meeting.
And then animal control bylaw to comport with changes in state law. And what that brings us to is start with 2.2 million. And after all of these appropriations, including the fire vehicles, which I know have been tabled. So without the fire vehicles, we're just at about $1 million. And then with that, we're at 9.3
We also
million.
passed on number 2 until you get the exact number.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So, one more time, we started with 2.2 million in free cash. Is that correct?
Yep. And with everything that was presented tonight, we end with 900,000. FinCom has put a hold on their recommendation of 290,000. So it would here, I'll just do it quickly here. So if neither of those things were approved, it would be at 1 point, and approved at town meeting, not approved by finance committee. It would be 1.2 million. Whereas if stabilization gets to 300,000, as FinCom has voted to make it, this number would be $225,000, and it would drop us to 913. Am I recollecting and interpreting 300,000 total to stabilization, meaning this article and the dump truck being closed out at 75?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Jeremy? Great. Jeremy, thank you for leading us through that. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks for your time, everyone.
thanks, Jeremy.
A motion to adjourn?
I have, The recording secretary has a few questions about past practices. When I write up the minutes, I definitely say who made the motion and who seconded it. Do I state whether it was unanimous or not?
I don't think.
In the minutes, I like to capture whether it was unanimous or not.
Okay, do I say that the vote tally was 4-1 or 3-2? Do I put in the specific number?
Yeah,
And do I identify the people who voted in the negative?
yes.
Okay, so it was me for one article and you for.
I was, yeah.
For the
table,
So Carl, a good way to do that a lot of committees have done has been if it passes 4-1, you would write, approved 4-1 and then parentheses Hummel. So you're being the one, it's clear that you're the one who voted no.
Yep.
Okay. So we have a few other items on the agenda before we adjourn. So review and approve previous meeting minutes. So those were not sent out, so we don't have anything to approve. So
Yeah. Billy's traveling, so I guess he didn't get to it.
yeah, so we'll move on for that. Good and welfare for the committee. Carl, what would you like to do with that section of the agenda?
Well, this is where we get, the question I just asked is that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Good and welfare, the way the Concom and other boards are doing it, this is where we get to raise issues about stuff. We don't make any decisions, but instead it would feed into a future agenda item where we would make a decision on something. So for example, how do we feel about the fact that Jeremy is going to be proposing a bylaw that specifically states that the town administrator is responsible for preparing, quote, owning, and responsible for preparing and submitting the budget to town meeting. How do we feel about the relationship, in terms of rewriting the FinCom bylaw to add or delete certain things? So that this is the part of the meeting where we would have this discussion. It's not an official agenda item. The agenda item would be when we say, okay, we're ready to actually vote and make a recommendation and decision.
Yeah, okay. I guess moving forward, it would be good for me to have a list of what those topics are. That way I can help make sure we're planning the meeting appropriately. If we do want support, I'd like a good idea of what, folks want to bring up. So that I can help triage those things. If there's other things going on that I have knowledge of going on that don't, maybe it changes whether it needs to be brought up or not. So if we don't get to it, then that's fine too, but I'd like to be made aware of those things prior to the meeting. Yeah.
Another way of looking at it is open meeting law says we don't talk about stuff outside of the meeting. This is our opportunity to chit chat about things in the public.
Oh, absolutely. And the goal would be for us to have a conversation about it, but just to make me aware of the topics so that we can plan the meeting.
So the policy is please advise the chair if you're going to bring up the topic.
Yes. Perfect. Okay.
And then I can even, and if I'm notified of it, then it would go in Hummel select board bylaw.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Great. Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you need me for anything else tonight, FinCom?
Oh, you are good, Jeremy. I thought you already signed off.
All right, no worries. All right, have a good night, everyone.
You too.
You too, thank you.
Good night.
Okay. All right, so unless there's other topics that want to be brought up.
Is our next meeting half hour before town meeting, or are we going to have one before then?
I do not plan to have another meeting before town meeting, unless something gets brought up that says, yes, we need to host one. So why don't minimally we need to post for the meeting prior to town meeting. We technically do not need to post for town meeting. So don't worry about posting for that. You can reconfirm with Ellen, but that's what she's told me before, because we don't deliberate on anything. I thought we had to as well.
As far as I'm concerned, if we have the meeting, we just don't adjourn the FinCom meeting until, we wait till FinCom moderator, we wait until the town meeting moderator closes the gavel, and then someone makes a motion, we now will
Yeah, I'd rather close the meeting out, not have to like forget and remember, right, and all those details. So I do not want to post for a town meeting, but
Okay, I will
you
check with that
can,
one.
you can reconfirm with Ellen, but,
So we're gonna be voting on 2 items, is that correct?
yes.
Article 2 and
24.
24 was the one, I just wanna make sure, since we are talking about this, that I voted no because I didn't want to table it.
Right, you wanted to
You
solve.
voted no to the table.
Table, correct,
Right.
right.
But
You wanted to solve it.
I wanted to get it over tonight because, but yeah, either way, I just wanna make sure that's clear, that they don't look down and say, oh, he doesn't want the vote.
yeah, so
That's all.
you voted no to the tabling, not no to the article.
Yep.
Okay. And Article 2, we are simply waiting for our suggestion to the select board to either take effect or not take effect.
Correct.
And what'll happen is, I'm gonna write up the minutes, you look at my write-up of 24 and make sure that I adequately described what your
That's fine.
big no was about.
That's fine. I think we were just voting to table it, and
All right, I'm going to move on from good and welfare for the committee unless there's anything else. All right, I do like the added updates here. This is something that I wanted to start getting a little more formal with. I don't personally have any updates from the chair, but from the capital planning committee, I guess, Jesse, this is you. I'd like to make sure that you have a way to be officially communicating back with us what you're learning and working through with the capital planning committee. So nothing formal and crazy, but just general, the state of the committee, if there's things that we should be aware of, things you'd like input on to bring back, just sort of that sort of update.
Yeah, I mean, the capital planning committee this round was brand new, and getting the cadence and getting the process down was half of the story. So what we did this time was get a preview of everything that we talked about tonight. So I've talked about it for double the hours that you have.
Well, that's why you're there, so appreciate it. This is why I like
hopefully
asking for your input on these things, because you have dove deeper than we have on them as well, right? So
I mean, things like the senior center deck, I mean, those were things that people spent a lot of time on. Hopefully it was worth everybody's time to try and put a finer point on some of these items, to kind of drill out some of the holes that, or fill in some of the holes that might have been there before they made its way to this committee and the select board. So that was part of the plan. And I think some of it was achieved anyway.
okay, great.
Are there any other committees that the FinCom has ex officio representation?
No, not officially. So with MRSDA and BBT, we are invited, but we are not officially part of the committee. So
Okay.
yeah. So this is the only place where we have.
No, well,
I mean, that's not true, right? So you're part of multiple committees,
Right.
right?
But it's not official.
You're part of other committees.
but it's official.
Yeah, but Jesse is not on the committee because he's on the member of FinCom.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
that's not ex officio.
When it was a working group before it became a committee, Jesse had interest, and we said, well, it'd be great to make sure we have at least a member of FinCom on there.
Okay,
So if Jesse was to ever leave both FinCom, if he was to leave FinCom and still be on the capital planning committee, I would either want to make sure we're having a regular touch point with someone from the committee, or work with the select board to say we should have somebody from FinCom officially on
okay.
committee.
It's something the GDRC can think about.
Yeah. Because I think that's a really good connection, and I'm not, stuck either way. I just want to make sure that there is a good, consistent connection, and it's very helpful to have a FinCom member on both boards.
We have an open position for another FinCom member if anybody would like to join.
No, I like just showing up for an occasional meeting. I don't want to have to commit to all of them.
All right.
My final comment is I went to the FinCom conference last Saturday. Billy wasn't able to make because he's traveling. they're going to be sending out conference materials and slides, and at that point, I'd be able to say, here's all the stuff I learned, and here's what Mendon we can think about doing.
Awesome.
In a future meeting.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great future agenda item, is to talk about those things. So, all right, Jesse, did you have anything else?
No, sir.
The only thing I mentioned is, so the STM is on a Wednesday this year.
Because of holidays.
The holiday, yeah.
Okay.
But the holiday would have been Tuesday. So Monday, we have to start trying to figure out.
It's scheduled and it is what it is.
It is what it is. I was just curious, does anybody know what they changed? I didn't know.
I don't know. Do you have any updates?
Ellen and Jeremy had a good idea, but I don't remember what it was.
Do you have any updates from the first budget subcommittee meeting?
No, other than what I mentioned with the healthcare costs, that's the big thing. Actually, that was before, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, we weren't in session.
Yeah, we weren't in session. I don't know if you heard, Jesse, so I went to the budget subcommittee. My God, it was, I actually walked in with them. The only big thing I would say, because it was a relatively short meeting, I think it was only like an hour, and they went right through, was the healthcare premiums are gonna be going up between 15 and 20%. Which, that's quite a bit though,
that is
more than a year ago.
That is what I heard
Yeah,
at the Saturday conference. Everybody was shocked by
Yeah.
how towns are going to go.
Yeah.
And basically one of the presentations was, yeah, we're gonna have to get the state to pry open their cherry sheet, because yes, the cherry sheet has been going up slightly, but our expenses are about to go way out of line. And
yeah,
we don't have the statutory ability to raise revenue. We need to get the state to give back some of the sales tax and other state funding mechanisms. They have to get filtered down to the municipalities.
so I asked, I asked Jay Byer what the dollar amount was, and it was around $875,000. So it'd be a 15 to 20% increase on that, the dollar amount over what we paid last year.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Last year it actually went up less than 9%.
Yeah. People were saying that 6 to 9% last year, but they're looking at 16, 15% next year. They're getting the message back from the insurance companies.
Yeah.
Did they have any current direction out minimum local contribution numbers?
They were still preliminary. So really,
Yeah, I know, but
I mean, I think it's gonna be very similar. I think as far as, you're talking about
what Mendon will need to pay, right? So the number that comes back into our budget and the likelihood of it driving significant churn within our budget structures for the next fiscal year.
it's kind of preliminary. I don't recall any.
It's very preliminary, but like these are the things that I want to try to maintain an eye on, is the likelihood of it totally disrupting where our budget possibly needs to go.
I can't remember what, I didn't actually write it down, but I don't recall it being to that, in other words.
Yeah.
It did look like it was, there weren't a lot of asks, I didn't think there was, and they were talking about, I call them the steps, when the teachers go into the next steps.
Yeah.
He said a lot of those will be coming out now because they were less, I think he said, than what he would have thought, and we can ask questions, why is it lower? So a lot of them have until, I forget the time, the date. The December one, I didn't go to this one last year. The December one was more information. This was like the first one.
Yeah, and I forwarded, this afternoon, I
saw
the rest of the ones through
Yeah.
February, to the entire committee, so you should all have that in your
Yeah.
box now.
Yeah.
So,
So the next one's actually on a Thursday. Anybody can go to them.
Unless you're in a Concom meeting.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. Although the last one was on a Wednesday, I don't know when.
okay. Anything else?
I mean, no, that's it. If I will, usually I write stuff down, but there wasn't any stuff to really write. This was a real bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, that's fine.
It just stuck in my mind about the 15 to 20%, just because that was a huge number.
Yeah. I'm not looking for a full recount of the
No,
meeting,
I-
but
yeah.
the important points.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I want to start to look for, is like, do we see a trend towards something disruptive to the mentioned budget compared to last year that might be showing?
I did not see that on this one. That doesn't have it. Did you
Does
say?
anybody have a theory on why the insurance is going up 20%?
Prescription drugs, paying for healthcare for undocumented immigrants, providing healthcare service. Hospitals and doctors are required to provide healthcare for people who can't pay for it. There's a lot more of them in the country now.
I mean, I work in healthcare, and I can tell you another big reason is the current administration at the federal level too. The subsidies are being decreased. I mean, that's obviously one of the big things with the government shutdown. But beyond the government shutdown, they are, we're seeing a decrease. But as Kyle said, the prescription drugs are huge, and actually there's a couple of insurers that are, I don't know if you heard, that are thinking of taking Wegovy and a couple of the others off their list. So, and I think I mentioned this last year that I heard the stat that if was Wegovy or one of them, they said if 25% of Medicare eligible people were put on Wegovy, it would bankrupt the system. So
Either that or they end up nationalizing the pharmaceutical.
Right, one of the others. So anyway, but it's 15 to 20%. I'm glad that at least that it was mentioned at the state level, because maybe they'll.
It wasn't mentioned at the state level. This was everybody coming, all of the people from FinComs around the state.
Right.
There were 100 people, 150 people. They are all going, oh my God, healthcare just went up.
Right. And I'll just tell the story, I don't know if you heard, but I was out to dinner the next day or the next week with a friend of mine who's the director of oncology at UMass, and he started complaining because he said his contributed, what he had to pay for was 18%. I said 18%, I'm glad to hear that, because at least I know that it's increased 20%, everybody, we're all paying it, it's like, it is what it is, so.
Okay, great. We don't have anything from BBT because I did not follow up my action to see when those committee meetings are, so unless anybody attended one that I'm aware of, but no. Okay. All right, any other items not reasonably anticipated 48 hours in advance?
Just a question.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come up, and I'm sorry if I missed any addressing of this topic, but did any work start for the town meeting vote to do all this work at the schools, especially at MISCO, where the town meeting probably will be?
I can answer that. I'm sorry, I can answer that, because as you mentioned that, it did, the roof project for Nipmuc, Jay did mention that he's got a few bids and that they've come in well under the 10 million. In fact, he said it was, I want to say 6 point something or whatever for everything. So it was significantly less than the 10 million.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it was, and again, that he said that he was still finalizing them, it could be a little bit, but he said that was one of them. Jesse, as far as the other ones, they were still getting bids. But the roof one, I'm glad you mentioned, if you remember that, yeah.
That's good to know, because we all thought the roof bid was about 4 million too high, so that's great.
Right there, no, it was 6.8 rings a bell, but again, it was, he had a couple of them, that were on, and he just mentioned it, and because I was like, oh, that's great. Well, don't be, it's not yet, it's not finalized, but it looks like it's going to come in well under. So.
Okay.
All right, and so scheduling future meetings. Next one on the books is right before STM. If there's a reason why folks would like to have a meeting, please reach out. I'm very happy to try to accommodate. So
6:30 it would be?
Yeah, the town meeting would be at 7, so we would meet at 6:30.
Okay.
Please make sure you're in the building by like 6:15ish, so that one can get started and it'll be a quick half hour. So
November 12th, right?
Wednesday.
I believe so.
Yeah, it is Wednesday.
Yeah, the 12th.
It's not on my calendar here. It's not on the calendar. Okay. All right. Okay, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. This is later, aye.
Aye.
Relay.
Breaker, aye. Meeting adjourned at 9:34 p.m. Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Gentlemen,
Good to see you guys. Thanks.
good to see you.